All right, okay, let's see. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our Tiger Talk today. My name is Lindsay Bray. I'm the Senior Coordinator of Parent and Family Services here at the University of Memphis. And today we have Paige Rooney with us, our Assistant Director of Recruitment, to talk with you about how you can assist your student in getting ready to attend the University of Memphis. Paige, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. I'm excited.
Well, to get us started, can you tell our parents a little bit about kind of some of the important dates and deadlines that are going to be coming up for their students getting ready to come?
Yes, absolutely. So this is the perfect time to be having this conversation because we haven't reached our first major deadline just yet. The next thing that you want to be paying attention to is February 1st. And so February 1st is our scholarship deadline for our scholarships through Tiger Scholarship Manager, which I think I'll talk a little bit more about later, but these are basically our competitive scholarships that students can apply for. So they are based on anything from, involvement experiences, maybe a particular major, maybe a specific donor from a certain area. There's over 700 opportunities. And so those have a deadline of February 1st. So if you are not quite eligible for our academic scholarships or maybe miss that deadline, then I would encourage everyone to log on to Tiger Scholarship Manager and apply there. The next things that are coming up are new student orientation. And so that's not necessarily a deadline, but that will be kind of the next step in making things official with the University of Memphis. And so March 1st is when that usually opens, and we will be sending more information. And so those are two things that come to mind. Also, registering for housing opens in February. And so this is kind of that time where if you've already been admitted, you're kind of sitting and waiting to see what happens next. And soon you'll be able to apply for housing and for orientation. If you haven't been admitted yet, you want to make sure that you are submitting all of your materials so that you don't get behind on those things like scholarships and housing and new student orientation.
And so just to be clear, students can still apply right now.
Yes, absolutely. So we have what we call kind of a rolling admissions process. And so we have some deadlines that we advertise that we encourage to help students stay on track. But a lot of those deadlines are not hard and fast. And so if you've applied and we're telling you to push and get your information in by February 1st, that's to help you. That doesn't mean there's going to be a penalty if you don't get everything in by then. So honestly, we will take applications until usually mid-August. But if that is the case, you will definitely have to struggle to get everything accomplished before starting classes. And so just keep that in mind if you're looking for the fall semester. I recommend applying as soon as you have interest. Usually it's the semester before, or at most maybe the year before you're able to attend. And so once you're applying early, then that gives us time to communicate with you in case maybe there's some extra materials that you have to send, or you might send in your application and then maybe your transcript takes a little bit longer, or your ACT score takes a little bit longer to get to us. And so try to build in a window that you're not, that your students are not putting themselves in a position where it's all crunch time. And so if they apply early, we can always add in and request additional materials later on.
So if students or their parents have any questions about the application process or about getting transcripts or any of those extra little things that they need to get, who's the best person for them to reach out to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a whole team dedicated to helping people through that process. And so we have a team of admissions counselors, and there's actually a really cool map on our website that you can choose your state or your county, depending on how we have it broken up, and find a specific person to get in contact with. They offer virtual meetings, phone, email. You can come meet with them on campus, really however is easiest for you. And no question is too big or too small. We know a little bit about everything on campus. And so kind of like Lindsay and her office, it's a great gateway if you're not sure who to go to. And so I would encourage people to find their particular admissions counselor. If you're struggling with that, or it's just really quick, you can reach us at recruitment@memphis.edu. And our phone number and all that contact info is listed online as well. So we're happy to help.
And we'll make sure and put all of that stuff in the chat and on the links below as well. So once a student, if a student, submits their application and is looking for, what is going to happen next. Can you walk them through a little bit of that process if they've just applied or they haven't fully gotten all of their stuff yet?
Yes. So, first off, our application, if anyone has not applied yet, it's really simple and streamlined. And so we have tried to make it as easy as possible and only ask the things that we need for admission. So there's not an essay required. There are really just kind of demographic questions, your address, some things that we need to know about you. You have the opportunity to self-report your scores, your high school scores and your standardized testing scores. And so that speeds up the process. And so we can make decisions sometimes based off of that self-reported data. If you say you have a 4.0, if you say you have a 4.0 and we later find out that that was not the case and you had a 2.0, we may redact that decision and change our mind. But most of the time people are pretty honest. So it does expedite things. But what happens is when a student applies, it goes directly into our system and we create a university ID and we match anything else that we may have had. So sometimes students will send us their transcript first, then they'll submit an application, then later they'll send an ACT score. And so we try to really keep that all together so that even if you're not doing it all at once, we can keep everything together and get you a quick decision. If a student has above a 3.0 GPA, nothing is a guarantee anywhere, but we are typically able to admit that student regardless of if they have an ACT score or a other standardized test score on file. And so we're really saying that you're probably pretty prepared for college. If you have taken an ACT, it can help you get qualified for scholarships and things like that, but it may not be something that hinders you as far as your admission. So if you apply, we see that you self-reported a 3.5 GPA, you may hear back from us in a few short days that says that you've been admitted. So we have some different processes on the back end where we try to match up all your materials, and usually it takes anywhere from, I would say the average is about 5 to 7 days for you to hear an admissions decision. Sometimes it's a little bit quicker, sometimes it's a little bit slower. It just kind of depends on the volume at that time.
So once a student's been accepted, what's the first thing that they should do once they get that acceptance letter or email?
Yeah, great question. So this is what we're pushing the most right now. So a lot of questions that we're getting are either what is my admission status, or I've been admitted, now what? And so the first thing that you want to do, and it is laid out for you on page 2 of your acceptance letter, the first thing that you want to do is activate your My Memphis account. And so that My Memphis account, it links to your Memphis email and really everything that you do here on campus at the University of Memphis. And so activating that account is non-binding. It doesn't mean that, you're opted in and you will now pay tuition. It's really just where you can see updates, you can do all of the things, you can view a bill once you have signed up for classes, and it's really just how we will communicate with you as a current student. So we want to go ahead and get students to activate that account, start checking their Memphis email account, whether that's directly through the email portal that we offer or getting it forwarded to a personal email account. Because really, once you're admitted, we're going to be communicating with you like a current student as well as with your personal account. Then once it comes time for orientation, we will move everything over just to your Memphis email account. And so we want that to be kind of a smoother transition if you're used to checking it. And we want to make sure that you're seeing everything. So definitely activate your My Memphis account. It's pretty simple once you've done it. We have a duo login process. And so that sometimes has a learning curve, but it's the safest way to make sure that your data is secure. So you'll have to link it up with a cell phone number so that you can log into all of our offerings here at the University of Memphis. So that'd be the biggest thing. I think if you're accepted and you haven't taken a campus tour, that's a really great option as well, whether you're coming to one of our events on campus or coming to tour campus. And I'll just do a plug, 9:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. every weekday, we do campus tours. And so that's a really great way just to see what it would be like to have a day on campus. And so I encourage that for all accepted students, even if we're your number one choice and you are definitely committing, or even if you're not really sure and maybe you applied on a whim just to see if we were an option.
So once a student is accepted, they have activated their account and then they're checking their email on a regular basis. Can you talk a little bit about those scholarships, the wonderful scholarships that all of our students and their families are always looking forward to, and how that kind of works for our first-time freshmen?
Yes, this is everybody's favorite topic because everybody wants a scholarship, and I wish that I could give one to everyone. But so for scholarships, we have some of them that we call our academic merit scholarships. They're automatic based on admissions information. And so the priority deadline for those was December 1st. But if you're watching here and your student has missed that deadline, or maybe something has changed since that deadline, we will accept updated information. So an updated ACT score, an updated GPA, maybe they had a really great 7th semester of high school, and we will use it as we are able to provide scholarship upgrades through March 1st. So if they didn't receive a scholarship, or if they received a lower level of scholarship and they are now qualified for a higher level, we will re-review that and award as we have funding availability. So again, the money does run out, but until then, we want to make sure that we're really maximizing student scholarships. So to be eligible for those academic scholarships, those start with a 24 on your ACT and a 3.25 GPA. And again, that's simply based on your application for admission. There's nothing additional needed on the student side. So if you have that, and then there's markers as you go higher that you can also qualify for more scholarship money. But if you have that and you haven't received something, you will get an email and a letter in the mail, and you will also be able to view your scholarship award offer on your My Memphis account. So there's a tab that says, I believe it's My Finances is what it says now. And you can view any scholarship offers. So I encourage you to go ahead and, again, activate that account, be checking it, and have your students know what they've been offered. Again, accepting those scholarships, just like creating that My Memphis account, is non-binding. So I know some students think, I got the offer, I don't want to accept anything yet because I want to see, what my options are. But it does not hurt you to accept that scholarship. We encourage you to go ahead and accept it if we're even on your radar. So those are the requirements for the academic scholarships. The Tiger Scholarship Manager portal is something separate that I mentioned earlier that you can log into, and you can apply for scholarships based on a variety of criteria. And so what you do is you create a profile, and the student will say, I've participated in these high school activities and I'm from this hometown. Here's my scores, and it will help match you with scholarships that the student might be eligible for, and then they can apply. So rather than scrolling through 700 plus opportunities, can help narrow it down to maybe 50, maybe 100, maybe 10 that they might be eligible for and can submit an application for. The Fafsa is another thing that can help students become eligible for either state or federal financial aid. And some of our scholarships do have a need-based component. So if a student has not yet filled out or completed their Fafsa, we really want to get them to do that as well. Even if you don't think that you would be eligible for anything, it really is one of those things that can only help you. It's not, no one's going to charge you anything if you fill out the FAFSA a certain way, but it can definitely help with some of those need-based scholarships or grant monies. So I think that covers most of the how do you get scholarships, but really that Tiger Scholarship Manager is going to be the best resource, and it continues for students that aren't brand new. And so sophomores can apply, juniors, continuing students can apply for scholarships there as well. And a lot of our academic colleges, they want to award continuing students because freshmen tend to change their major. And so we still encourage students to apply for all of those, but if they aren't seeing that they're getting a lot of academic scholarships, through their major, if they apply again the next year, their chances may be a little bit higher because they've demonstrated they're committed to that major.
So due to the pandemic, some schools have waived that ACT and SAT scores. And so just to confirm, those are necessary this year for our students to qualify for some scholarships.
Really, really good question. So this would be a good place if we could link our scholarship website, because for me as a visual learner, that's going to make a little bit more sense. But for our traditional academic merit scholarships, yes, a student has to have both the GPA and the ACT or SAT score. But we've created some new scholarships this year, and these are for students who do not have an ACT score, or maybe have an ACT score that is not up to par with the scholarship requirement. So those, I believe, are starting with a 3.8. Again, y'all check me on that. It's in that ballpark. It is a pretty high GPA. But even if a student has a lower ACT score and that high GPA, they can qualify. These are called our Trustee Awards, and they're automatic just based on the student's information. So really the goal here was, even if a student takes the ACT and maybe their score, wasn't what they had hoped it would be, it's probably been impacted by the last year and a half of virtual learning, or, just general upheaval that we've all experienced. And so it's a way to award students who've done really well in school, regardless of how they're doing on those standardized tests. So that also is a reason why we encourage you to submit a score, but it's not going to be required. So they have a do no harm policy. As long as you have the GPA, you could be eligible for those. And they range from a $500 award up to about $2,000, I believe. Again, they're new, and so I'm sorry that I can't quite quote. I should be looking at that, but we'll double check it and give y'all that information. So those are called our Trustee Awards.
We'll make sure it includes some links to that as well. And so one of the other big scholarships that I know our families are usually can be familiar with is our Hope Scholarship. Is there anything our students need to do in particular to be eligible for that here at the University of Memphis?
Yeah, that's a great one. And we're so lucky to have Hope in the state of Tennessee. So the main thing, a student must submit a Fafsa, regardless of their family income, in order to be eligible for the Hope Scholarship. So first thing, submit that Fafsa. Also, in order to meet the criteria, it's a student either has to have a 21 on the ACT or the SAT equivalent, or a 3.0 high school GPA. Now for our homeschool students, they also have to have that ACT score in addition to the GPA, but otherwise it's just one or the other. And if you qualify, you want to make sure that the University of Memphis is listed as number 1 on both your Fafsa and in your TSAC portal. So if this sounds like another language, talk to the student's guidance counselor, or just make sure they activate their TSAC portal in addition to the Fafsa. And that's the state version that really administers that aid. The Hope Scholarship is usually applied later. If a student is getting it based on their GPA, we want to make sure that we see that they're graduating with that GPA. And so you might see an estimated Hope Award on the student's account versus the actual Hope Award being offered. And sometimes that panics people and they think, oh, wait, where's my Hope Scholarship? But it's usually applied over the summer months. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you're, doing those things to make sure that we apply it, but it may not show up at the same time as some of the other scholarship dollars.
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't panic. We can fix those things. That one especially is an easy fix and does get put on a lot of times during the summer for our students. So you mentioned orientation, which we're always excited to have new students here on campus over the summer. Can you tell students a little bit about how it would be best for them to sign up for new student orientation?
Yeah, so it is almost time. This is also actually tomorrow. We have orientation for our spring students. We're recording this a little bit earlier probably than you'll receive it, but we have a one-day program for our students coming in the spring, and we will have a 2-day overnight orientation this summer that we'll be talking a lot more about over the next few months. But this is the time of the year when people come back to school for the spring and they think, wait, how do I sign up? Am I behind? No, you're not behind just yet. And so March 1st is when the portal will open for you to sign up for new student orientation. It will require students to log in with their information for their Memphis account. So keep that in mind. Also, parents, if maybe you helped them with that Memphis account, keep in mind that would be a really good time to maybe switch over and make sure they are aware of their password and that they have their phone connected with the Duo, because that's how we're going to be communicating with them about some of the orientation pieces. And we want the parental support, and we want parents to come and to join them. But there's some things that the students will get an email from their academic advisor, and there's a few pieces that we really want to make sure that we're catching the student. So regardless of what that looks like for y'all, we have our policies, but let's make sure that your student is signing up. We think it's great for people to do together, because there's a lot of times that when signing up, a student just goes really quickly through the process, and then we get the calls from the parents saying, wait a minute, did they sign me up? Did they pay for me? They said they did. And y'all just know that sometimes they can't be trusted. So feel free to go through that process with them, but it is all through their single sign-on. So a couple things to be prepared for when it is time to sign up for orientation. There is a fee. It has historically been $110 per student and about $55 per parent or guest. Parents are allowed to stay the night for an additional fee if you need to stay the night. We don't necessarily recommend it. It is just an overnight stay in a residence hall. You're not staying with your student, so just keep that in mind. So those are just a couple of the things. I'm sure that we'll talk more and you'll hear more about it, but just if you need to go ahead and start saving your money, make sure your student has their password. March 1st will be when it starts, and the dates run anywhere from late May through early August. And the earlier you come, the better, because everyone is signing up for classes all summer. And so if you come, you probably with the first pick. We do our best to make sure we're adding courses and adding seats so that we will not run out of space by any means. But there may be some 8 a.m. classes that are not the most popular that people at the end of the summer have to choose from. So just keep that in mind, but there's nothing wrong with whenever you can attend. Just make sure that you sign up early.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece of advice I give to parents, is come as early as possible. Because if you have a student that does not like early morning classes, we want to get them in early and get that schedule done.
Yes. Well, and that's what I think that the parents and y'all who are thinking about these things in advance, I think it's great to know that March date, because sometimes the students, it's like they're really trying to get through the end of their semester. And so they kind of think, oh yeah, I got this email, but I'm going to put it off until I'm done with high school. And then at that point, of course, they can still register, but half of the summer dates may be filled up. So we would just encourage y'all to help stay on them about keeping up with, y'all know you've got to help them keep up with their deadline. So registering early and not putting it off until they want to sign up and then come the next day. And that's just not really how it works.
And are all students required to come to new student orientation?
So I guess yes and no. Freshmen, we do require freshmen to come to new student orientation. It is where they register for their classes. It is where they finalize all their enrollment activities and really just learn what it means to be a Tiger. So we try to make it fun, but yes, we do require all students to attend. And our transfer students have an optional orientation. So depending on, who I'm talking to here, it is optional for transfer students, but it's highly recommended. It's also an abbreviated version. And so it's a lot shorter, a little bit more to the point, because we know that students that are either transfer students or maybe a returning student who's a little bit older may not need as much. It's a little bit more focused on how you can transition to the University of Memphis, get everything taken care of. Whereas the new student orientation for freshmen has a whole component for parents about how you can support your student. And it's also about making that transition from high school to college. So it's a whole new world, and we want to make sure that we're supporting and providing everything that we can.
Highly recommend that parents and families come to their track. It is specifically done for parents and families. It's not like you're sitting there with your student the entire time and hearing the same things, but it's always good to have that second pair of ears. So if your schedules align, always a good thing. If you can have a parent or family member come along with a student as well during the summer. So once a student has done their FAFSA, they've applied, they've been admitted, they've set up their email, they've registered for new student orientation, they've looked at housing options and decided whether they want to stay on campus. What else might they need to do? Is there anything else that they need to do at that point?
Yeah. So the only things that come to mind, and again, there's not really like an upcoming deadline. It's just if you really want to be prepared and make sure that you're doing everything and on top of everything, take a look at meal plans. I think that's always helpful to see if that's something beneficial. We do talk about it at orientation, but there's a lot of options, and it can be confusing about the different options. And so if you look at those in advance and kind of have an idea of what you and your student think they might need, then that can help prepare you for when you need to make that selection throughout the summer. And I would just say generally stay on top of anything in the student's email. And so we find a lot of students have financial aid requirements that they need to meet before they're able to fully be awarded. Maybe they were selected for verification. Maybe there's a form. Maybe there's a proof of something. A lot of things with the FAFSA are government processes. And so we love a document. We love a proof of something. And there's just some of those take time. And so make sure that they're checking to make sure their requirements are satisfied, because we don't want y'all in a spot where it's the week before classes, the financial aid didn't go through, how do we pay for it? So just be aware of those types of things. I mentioned visiting campus. Let's see. I think the only other thing would just be think about the next steps. And so talk to one another about what needs to happen, and make sure that the students feel comfortable. We do send a lot of emails and reminders, but from what I'm finding is today's student, it's like an email is kind of in one ear out the other. And so just help them, locate the things that we've sent, or help to empower them not to be afraid to ask, because that's why we're all here. And so we love to hear from parents. We are happy to help parents and guests and guardians, but it's also helpful to include that student in the conversation so that they know for the future, especially when it comes to things like financial aid. Because once they get admitted, it feels like we're helping them through the financial aid and scholarship process more than we are anything else. And that's one that will come up year to year. And so you want to make sure they're as involved as possible. But really, no, just do some research, get excited, and come visit campus.
And so can you tell us a little bit about what National College Decision Day is? And if a student does decide to come to the University of Memphis, how they can kind of show their Tiger pride?
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy that we're already thinking about this, because I feel like time flies, but National College Decision Day is May 1st. And so that is, for some colleges, that is a hard deadline when you must tell them what is going on and, pay a deposit or whatever that looks like. For the University of Memphis, it is our first orientation deadline. And so by May 1st is when most of those sessions will either be at capacity or starting to fill up. And so keep that in mind. So it's both a deadline and a fun, exciting time to celebrate what your next step is. And so we have some things in the works. We won't release them all just yet, but usually we have some sort of a social media promotion where you can, tag us and be featured. We want to see who's coming and who's part of the class of 2026. And so make sure you're engaging with that. We usually do some giveaways. We will probably try to come to some local area high schools and just celebrate you and the fact that you have decided on an institution. So we hope it's the University of Memphis. And again, it's just kind of a fun way to celebrate and make that decision. So the things that you celebrate are non-binding, but we think that May 1st is helpful to go ahead and make that decision if you can, so that you have time again to transition throughout the summer. So a lot of people put it off and they say, oh, I love school A and school B. What am I going to do? May 1st, June 1st, July 1st, you've really got to decide. And so if you can do it by that National Decision Day, then your summer will be a little bit easier and we can just celebrate. So we hope to see y'all on social media, possibly in person on that date. And we've even had some virtual events over the last few years. So just keep May 1st in mind as your internal deadline of when things are decided.
Thank you, Paige, so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, coming to talk to parents about getting ready and all the next steps that they need to do. We really appreciate it. And so thank you, parents, for joining us as well. And we will see you on our next Tiger Talk.
Thank you.